Most people believe that confidence is about being louder, tougher, or quicker to speak. They think it's about dominating a room, interrupting others, or showing no fear. But that's not confidence. That's insecurity in disguise. True confidence is never loud. It's the quiet certainty of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. And persuasion, real psychological persuasion, is not about overpowering someone's words. It's about mastering your own mind before you ever open your mouth. Confidence and influence are psychological skills rooted in self-control, awareness, and precision. You don't win arguments by being aggressive. You win by being composed. You don't gain respect by speaking over people. You gain it by mastering silence, by observing what others miss, and by understanding the subtle cues that reveal what people truly feel, even when their words say otherwise. In this talk, we'll explore the psychology behind real confidence, how to train your mind and body to project calm authority, read people effortlessly, and handle any confrontation without losing your composure. Because the most powerful person in the room is never the loudest. It's the one who's unshakable. Confidence begins long before you speak. It begins in how you feel. Emotional regulation is the foundation of true confidence because it separates those who react impulsively from those who respond with purpose. Most people confuse emotional expression with emotional strength, believing that showing every feeling as it comes proves authenticity. But in reality, those who cannot control their emotions are controlled by them. The first step toward mastery is awareness, noticing when you're triggered, when your heart rate changes, when your breathing tightens, when your mind starts to race. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about observing them without becoming them. In any argument or moment of tension, people's emotions betray them before their words do. The louder someone gets, the more they reveal how threatened they feel. When someone loses control of their tone or their body language, they hand over their psychological power. But when you remain calm, you send a very different message, one that says, "You can't shake me." That steadiness unnerves others because it exposes their lack of control. The human brain is wired to seek safety, and people instinctively trust those who appear emotionally grounded. Your calm doesn't just protect you, it influences how others perceive you. It tells them, even unconsciously, that you are the stable presence in the storm. To practice emotional control, you must train yourself in stillness. The next time you feel anger or defensiveness, rise, pause for 3 seconds before responding. It's in those 3 seconds that power lives. Most arguments escalate because someone reacts too soon, trying to prove a point rather than preserve control. Those 3 seconds give your logical mind time to catch up with your emotional brain. You shift from reacting to responding, from chaos to strategy. Over time, this pause becomes instinctive. You begin to sense when someone is baiting you, trying to provoke you into anger or anxiety. And instead of falling into that trap, you learn to observe the game and stay above it. Emotional regulation also requires you to understand the triggers that disarm you. We all have them, specific tones, words, or gestures that make us feel disrespected or unheard. But those triggers are opportunities for growth. When you recognize what provokes you, you uncover where you still give away your power. Every trigger you master becomes a doorway to deeper confidence. When you no longer need external validation to feel grounded, no one can manipulate your emotions again. This is how psychological dominance works, not through intimidation, but through internal discipline. Neuroscience supports this truth. When we regulate our emotions, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for decision-making and reasoning, stays active. But when we lose control, the amygdala takes over, flooding our system with stress hormones. That's why people say things they regret or react irrationally in heated moments. Emotional regulation is not about being emotionless. It's about keeping the logical part of your brain in charge. The calmer you stay, the smarter you think. And that clarity gives you a tactical edge in every situation. Another key to mastering emotional control is detachment. Detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means not taking things personally. The moment you personalize someone's tone, attitude, or opinion, you lose objectivity. Confident people don't need to win every verbal exchange because they understand that every conversation is not a battle. It's data. They listen for information, patterns, and emotional cues. They ask themselves, what is this person really showing me right now? That level of awareness is far more powerful than any quick comeback. You cannot control the behavior of others, but you can always control your internal state. That's what makes you unpredictable. And unpredictability, when rooted in calm, is power. People expect you to react. When you don't, they lose their balance. You maintain the frame, and the frame is where influence happens. Whether you're in a negotiation, a disagreement, or a casual conversation, your composure becomes your greatest psychological weapon. It disarms aggression, neutralizes tension, and commands respect without a word. Emotional regulation isn't something you achieve once, it's something you practice every day. It's in the way you breathe when you're stressed, the way you slow down before replying, the way you remind yourself, I don't need to win this moment. I need to own it. That subtle shift turns emotional chaos into calm authority. Because the truth is, no one can make you lose control. They can only invite you to. And confidence is choosing not to accept that invitation. Presence is the invisible language of power, the subtle signal that announces to the world, without a word, that you are grounded, capable, and fully in command of yourself. Most people underestimate the importance of presence, believing that influence comes from talking more, moving faster, or proving themselves in every interaction. In reality, presence is the quiet force that draws attention, earns respect, and makes others listen before you even speak. It's less about what you do and more about how you inhabit a space, physically, mentally, and emotionally. When you are truly present, your confidence radiates in ways that words alone cannot replicate. Being present begins with awareness of your body and mind. Notice how you move through a room, how you breathe, and how your posture communicates without speaking. The simplest gestures, a straightened spine, relaxed shoulders, slow, intentional breathing, broadcast calm authority. People are instinctively drawn to those who seem unhurried, deliberate, and in control of themselves. When others rush, fidget, or act scattered, they unconsciously signal insecurity. Presence, by contrast, signals that you are grounded and centered, that your mind is not cluttered by unnecessary worry or distraction. In social and professional settings alike, presence is the most persuasive form of credibility. Mental presence is just as critical as physical presence. Too often, people speak without listening, reacting without thinking, or thinking while distracted. True presence requires complete engagement with the current moment, listening deeply, observing carefully, and absorbing every nuance of behavior, tone, and expression. It means noticing the subtle shift in someone's voice when they are nervous, catching the micro-expressions that betray hidden emotion, and understanding the unsaid motives behind their words. This level of awareness gives you a psychological advantage. You can anticipate, adapt, and respond in ways that others, caught in their own distractions, cannot. Presence is also the ability to slow down time in perception. When you move too quickly, talk too fast, or respond without reflection, you give away control. But when you pause, take measured breaths, and articulate thoughts with clarity, you create a sense of authority that is both magnetic and unshakable. People tend to equate speed with anxiety and calm with competence. When someone is unhurried and deliberate, we instinctively assign value to their words, assuming that their thoughtfulness reflects both intelligence and experience. Mastering this dynamic allows you to command attention naturally, without confrontation or force. Another crucial aspect of presence is emotional equilibrium. The way you handle small provocations reveals how stable you truly are. People naturally scan for vulnerability, looking for any hint of frustration, irritation, or uncertainty. When you maintain equanimity, even in tense situations, you demonstrate that you are not reactive. This composure subtly shifts power to you because others are wired to trust and defer to those who appear steady and controlled. Presence, in this sense, is not about intimidation. It is about creating an aura of quiet certainty that people instinctively respect. To cultivate presence, practice stillness, both physically and mentally. When entering a room, resist the urge to fidget, to speak first, or to fill silence with unnecessary words. Observe the environment, read the energy, and allow your presence to make the first impression. The ability to exist fully in a moment, unshaken by external chaos, signals that your mind is disciplined, your body is aligned, and your intentions are clear. It is in this alignment that the psychological advantage lies. Presence also involves mastering the subtle art of energy projection. Every movement, glance, and gesture carries information. When you move with purpose, maintain steady eye contact, and speak with calm intention, your presence communicates confidence before a single word is exchanged. People are neurologically wired to respond to these nonverbal cues, often perceiving authority even when the content of speech is still developing. This is why leaders, negotiators, and experts often command respect simply by entering a space quietly yet decisively. Presence is a mindset as much as a behavior. It is the constant practice of being aware, composed, and deliberate. It requires rejecting the pull of distraction, the urge to over-explain, and the need for external validation. When your presence is rooted in self-possession rather than performance, it becomes a tool of subtle influence. People sense authenticity instinctively, and there is no more persuasive signal than someone who is fully, unwaveringly themselves. Your voice is more than a vehicle for words. It is one of the most powerful instruments of influence and persuasion you possess. Most people underestimate the subtle power of tone, cadence, and volume, thinking that what they say matters more than how they say it. But psychology and behavioral science make it clear that communication is at least 70% nonverbal, and much of that is carried in the nuances of your voice. A calm, steady tone communicates authority and confidence in ways that assertive language alone cannot. Conversely, a rushed, high-pitched, or shaky voice signals insecurity, even if your words are assertive. Mastery of tone is, therefore, mastery of perception. The first step in using your voice effectively is awareness. Many people don't realize how their emotions infiltrate their speech. Anger raises pitch and quickens pace. Anxiety creates a tremor. Excitement can lead to overprojection. By learning to notice these subtle changes in yourself, you gain the ability to control them. Begin by practicing deliberate breathing, slow, diaphragmatic breathing that stabilizes your vocal cords and your nervous system. When you speak from a controlled breath, your voice becomes naturally calm and resonant, projecting authority without aggression. People are neurologically wired to respond positively to tones that are measured, steady, and confident because these cues indicate safety, composure, and competence. Cadence is another critical factor. Speaking too quickly can make you seem nervous, while speaking too slowly can create impatience or doubt in your listeners. The key is to use rhythm strategically, allowing your words to land with impact. Pauses are a secret weapon in vocal communication. They give listeners time to absorb your message, create anticipation, and emphasize key points. Silence between sentences is often more persuasive than continuous speech. When someone is used to filling every space with words, your measured pacing commands attention and signals thoughtfulness, making your points carry more weight. Volume is equally important. Many people believe that speaking louder equals being heard, but psychological studies show that controlled volume is far more influential than sheer decibels. A steady, moderate tone conveys confidence because it suggests that you are comfortable in your own presence. When you raise your voice only when necessary, the change becomes dramatic and draws attention without aggression. Conversely, a voice that constantly rises in volume subconsciously communicates tension, frustration, or insecurity. By learning to modulate volume deliberately, you maintain psychological dominance while remaining approachable and composed. Emotional modulation of the voice is a subtle art. The most persuasive speakers are those who never let their emotions hijack their tone, yet their voice conveys empathy and understanding. Imagine speaking with calm authority while showing genuine interest in the other person's perspective. Your voice becomes magnetic because it balances strength with approachability. People instinctively trust voices that are calm but expressive, those that communicate intelligence and composure simultaneously. Practicing this balance allows you to navigate arguments, negotiations, and difficult conversations without resorting to aggression or defensiveness. Another overlooked aspect of vocal influence is resonance. Resonance comes from proper breath support, posture, and vocal cord engagement, creating a rich, full sound that carries naturally. People are drawn to resonant voices because they subconsciously associate them with health, power, and competence. Practicing resonance not only improves your authority, but also increases your presence, because your voice occupies space in a way that demands attention without demanding confrontation. The strategic use of vocal inflection can shape perception. Monotone delivery often signals disinterest, fatigue, or lack of confidence, while dynamic variation, emphasis on certain words, slight shifts in pitch, conveys intelligence, control, and emotional awareness. Influential speakers use vocal inflection to highlight critical points, guide attention, and maintain engagement. Mastering this requires mindfulness, observing how you naturally speak, identifying areas of tension or monotony, and consciously adjusting to convey calm, power, and clarity. Your voice is a reflection of your internal state, and when it is steady, controlled, and expressive, it becomes a tool of persuasion far more potent than any argument. By learning to regulate tone, cadence, volume, and resonance, you signal calm authority, influence perception, and create a psychological advantage. This mastery turns every interaction into an opportunity to demonstrate composed confidence, allowing you to win over minds before the content of your words even lands. Your body speaks long before your mouth does, and most people underestimate just how much influence posture, movement, and subtle gestures have over perception. Body language is the silent language of power, and it communicates far more than words ever could. A calm, upright posture signals confidence and control, while slouched shoulders or fidgeting betray uncertainty or insecurity. People are wired to pick up on these nonverbal cues almost unconsciously. Whether in an argument, a negotiation, or a casual conversation, your body communicates your state of mind before you say a single word, and those who understand this principle are able to project authority effortlessly. Every gesture, every micro movement carries meaning. Crossing your arms might seem defensive, but when paired with a relaxed posture and steady eye contact, it can signal thoughtful reflection rather than closed-mindedness. Similarly, leaning slightly forward while listening demonstrates engagement, while leaning back communicates self-assurance and composure. The key is subtlety. Exaggerated movements often read as theatrical or insecure, whereas controlled, deliberate gestures convey calm confidence. Learning to use your body as a tool for influence begins with self-awareness. Noticing how you naturally stand, move, and react, and adjusting in ways that project strength without aggression. Eye contact is one of the most powerful components of body language. Sustained, steady eye contact communicates presence, attentiveness, and authority, while avoidance or darting eyes signal discomfort or doubt. But there is a balance. Staring too intensely can intimidate or provoke defensiveness, whereas too little connection diminishes credibility. The art is in the rhythm, holding attention just long enough to convey confidence and engagement, then softening to signal approachability. Eye contact is not merely about looking, it's about listening with your eyes, reading micro-expressions, and responding with subtle acknowledgement. It is a conversation in itself, often more persuasive than spoken words. Facial expressions are equally important. A calm, composed expression communicates that you are in control, even in moments of tension. People often underestimate the influence of micro-expressions, fleeting signs of emotion that can betray irritation, anxiety, or fear. By practicing a controlled, neutral expression while still showing appropriate warmth or empathy, you maintain psychological advantage without appearing cold. Smiles, nods, and slight head tilts can be used strategically to create connection, while remaining centered and unshakable. The combination of controlled facial cues with measured eye contact forms a nonverbal language that others instinctively read as competence and authority. Hand movements can also enhance presence and persuasion when used thoughtfully. Open palms indicate honesty and transparency, while precise gestures can reinforce key points during communication. Overly rapid or erratic hand movements often suggest nervousness, whereas deliberate, calm gestures demonstrate confidence and purpose. Even subtle things, like where you place your hands while sitting or standing, communicate your level of composure. The more aware you are of these signals, the more you can harness them to influence how others perceive you. Spatial awareness, the way you occupy and move through space, is another layer of nonverbal influence. People unconsciously assess the confidence of someone based on how they use their surroundings. Standing with your feet firmly planted, moving with intention, and respecting personal boundaries while asserting your own creates a sense of stability and control. This subtle command of space signals to others that you are comfortable, composed, and self-possessed without needing to verbalize dominance or assertiveness. Even breathing is a component of body language. Slow, steady breaths keep your movements relaxed and grounded, which radiates calm authority. Shallow or rapid breathing often manifests in tension or jitteriness, which others can sense and respond to unconsciously. Practicing controlled breathing while maintaining posture, eye contact, and purposeful gestures amplifies the effect of your presence, allowing you to project strength without appearing aggressive. Mastering body language is not about adopting a rigid or artificial demeanor. It is about alignment between your internal state and external signals. When your posture, gestures, facial expressions, and movements reflect composure and confidence, you communicate authority naturally. People respond instinctively to this consistency. In high-pressure situations, your body can become your most powerful ally, demonstrating calm, control, and influence long before your words land. Understanding and using these silent signals transforms interactions, allowing you to assert presence, command attention, and subtly influence outcomes without raising your voice. Silence is one of the most underestimated tools in human communication, yet it is one of the most powerful weapons for those who understand its subtle influence. Most people fear silence, equating it with weakness, hesitation, or a lack of intelligence. In reality, silence is a demonstration of control, self-possession, and strategic awareness. When used intentionally, it allows you to shape the psychological dynamics of any interaction, commanding attention and respect without uttering a single word. The human mind instinctively seeks to fill silence, which gives the silent party a unique advantage. They can observe, assess, and guide the conversation while others reveal their intentions through their need to speak. The power of silence lies in its ability to create psychological tension. When someone expects an immediate response and is met with measured quiet, they often over-explain or reveal more than they intended. This is not manipulation in the harmful sense. It is simply a natural effect of human behavior. Our brains are wired to resolve uncertainty, and silence creates a subtle form of uncertainty that prompts others to clarify, justify, or inadvertently disclose information. By mastering silence, you gain a vantage point that allows you to navigate interactions with calm precision, making your responses more impactful and your authority unquestionable. Silence also signals confidence and composure. When someone pauses thoughtfully before responding, it demonstrates that they are not reactive, that they consider their words carefully, and that they are not easily provoked. In contrast, those who rush to fill space with words often reveal insecurity or emotional volatility. The psychological effect of this is profound. People instinctively trust and defer to those who exhibit control over their own speech. The person who can sit quietly, absorb information, and respond deliberately communicates that they are grounded, capable, and in command of both themselves and the interaction. Strategic silence is especially effective in arguments or high-stakes conversations. When emotions run high, the instinct to defend, explain, or counterattack is almost automatic. But the most persuasive communicators resist this impulse. Instead of reacting immediately, they allow silence to create a buffer, giving both parties a moment to cool and reflect. This pause often diffuses tension and forces others to confront their own reasoning, while simultaneously enhancing the silent party's authority. The impact of a well-timed pause can be far greater than any barrage of words, because it allows logic and composure to speak louder than emotion or aggression. Silence also deepens presence. A person who can be fully comfortable in quiet exudes a magnetic calm. Others are drawn to this stability because it signals self-assurance and emotional resilience. By practicing strategic silence, you teach yourself to tolerate discomfort. The discomfort that comes from the unknown, from waiting for someone else to act, or from holding your response while tension builds. That tolerance is a skill that extends far beyond conversation. It strengthens your overall mindset, enhances emotional regulation, and reinforces the impression of authority in every interaction. Furthermore, silence allows observation. While others speak, reveal, and react, the silent observer gathers critical information: tone, body language, microexpressions, and the emotional undercurrents of the conversation. This silent data collection is invaluable, enabling you to respond with precision and foresight rather than impulsively. Most people miss these cues because they are focused on talking rather than listening. By mastering silence, you create a space where insight emerges naturally, giving you the upper hand in both persuasion and conflict resolution. The strategic use of silence also enhances your verbal impact when you do choose to speak. Words delivered after a deliberate pause carry weight, clarity, and authority. The human brain gives more attention to statements that follow a moment of stillness, interpreting them as considered and important. By contrast, constant talking dilutes impact, exhausting attention and diminishing credibility. Silence, in essence, makes your words rare, deliberate, and powerful. Silence is a form of psychological self-protection. It prevents reactive or defensive speech, reduces the chance of revealing internal uncertainty, and allows you to maintain composure regardless of provocation. It creates a space where influence is subtle but undeniable, where calm authority is more persuasive than loud argument, and where power is measured by restraint rather than aggression. Mastering silence is mastering the art of presence, observation, and strategic influence, turning quiet into a weapon that shapes conversations, minds, and outcomes without ever needing to dominate them with noise. Influence is often misunderstood. Many people assume it is about convincing, persuading, or overpowering someone through logic, emotion, or pressure. In reality, influence is less about force and more about alignment. Aligning your presence, your words, your tone, and your understanding of human behavior with the psychological currents that drive decision-making. People are not purely rational beings. They are guided as much by emotion, perception, and subconscious patterns as by conscious thought. Understanding this allows you to guide outcomes subtly, without coercion, and without undermining respect or trust. Real influence feels natural to others because it resonates with what they already believe or need to feel, rather than imposing a viewpoint upon them. The first principle of psychological influence is understanding human needs and motivations. Every person operates from a set of underlying desires, fears, or values that dictate behavior. Some seek validation, others security, others control, and others connection. Observing these patterns allows you to frame your communication in a way that speaks directly to those needs. When someone feels heard, understood, or respected, they are far more receptive to your perspective. Influence is rarely effective when it challenges identity or threatens ego. It is most effective when it affirms, guides, and gently nudges toward alignment. Those who master influence recognize that the goal is not to win over another, but to guide them toward a decision they can accept with pride and confidence. Influence also relies heavily on the perception of authority. Humans are wired to respond to credible, composed individuals. But authority is not the same as dominance. True authority comes from mastery over oneself, one's knowledge, and one's presence. When you exhibit calm confidence, emotional regulation, and consistent composure, people naturally defer to your judgment. This is why leaders who remain steady under pressure are more effective than those who shout or demand obedience. The subtle cues of competence, posture, tone, clarity, and controlled gestures communicate authority even before a single persuasive word is spoken. Influence begins with being perceived as someone capable of guiding outcomes, and perception is often more impactful than argument. Reciprocity is another fundamental psychological principle that fuels influence. People are naturally inclined to return kindness, consideration, and fairness. When you approach interactions with empathy, respect, and thoughtfulness, you are creating a subconscious obligation for others to respond in kind. This does not mean manipulation in a selfish sense. It means understanding human behavioral patterns and using them ethically. A simple acknowledgement of someone's perspective, a carefully timed compliment, or a genuine show of understanding often opens doors far more effectively than confrontation or insistence. Influence thrives in environments where people feel valued, understood, and safe, because these states reduce resistance and increase willingness to cooperate. Consistency and commitment play a major role in shaping influence as well. People prefer to act in ways that align with prior decisions or publicly stated beliefs. When you understand this tendency, you can guide behavior by helping someone articulate small commitments aligned with your desired outcome. These commitments create a psychological momentum. The more someone has invested, even subtly, the more likely they are to continue along that path. This principle works in everything from personal negotiations to leadership dynamics because it leverages the natural human desire to remain congruent with one's own choices and identity. By framing requests or suggestions in a way that resonates with prior commitments, influence becomes an extension of someone's self-perception rather than an external imposition. Another subtle but profound aspect of influence is mirroring and alignment. Humans are highly responsive to social and behavioral cues from those they interact with. Matching posture, tone, or rhythm in conversation creates a sense of rapport and trust. It signals similarity, empathy, and understanding, which lowers resistance and increases receptiveness. Mirroring should be subtle. Overt mimicry can feel artificial, but when done skillfully, it creates psychological resonance. Influence in this context is not coercive, it is collaborative, leveraging natural tendencies toward empathy and connection to guide outcomes without confrontation. The power of framing cannot be overstated. How a message is presented often matters more than the message itself. Humans respond more favorably to opportunities framed in terms of gain rather than loss, to challenges framed as achievable rather than insurmountable, and to choices framed in alignment with values rather than authority. By carefully selecting words, tone, and context, you can guide perception without forcing compliance. Framing allows you to highlight benefits, minimize resistance, and lead others to conclusions that feel self-derived rather than imposed. Influence becomes a matter of guiding thought rather than dictating it, and people are far more willing to follow when they feel the choice was theirs. Timing is another critical factor. Influence is not about speaking first or speaking most often. It is about speaking at the right moment. Observing emotional rhythms, energy levels, and mental states allows you to interject with maximum effect. Timing your points after careful observation increases their impact because they land when the listener is most receptive. Rushing, interrupting, or overloading with information reduces influence because it triggers defensive mechanisms. Mastering timing transforms influence from persuasion into a subtle orchestration of interaction dynamics. Stories and metaphors are another tool of profound influence. Humans are naturally wired to understand and remember narratives far more easily than abstract arguments. A well-placed story resonates emotionally and intellectually, allowing others to internalize your message without feeling pressured. Stories bypass resistance by engaging imagination, eliciting empathy, and presenting lessons indirectly. Influence through narrative is elegant because it allows people to reach conclusions on their own, giving them ownership of the outcome while you remain a guide rather than an aggressor. Influence requires patience and restraint. Immediate results are rare. Most effective influence is cumulative, built over time through consistency, trust, and subtle guidance. The most persuasive individuals are those who understand that the power of influence lies not in domination, but in the ability to remain composed, observant, and responsive while others reveal their needs, motives, and intentions. By exercising restraint, you avoid reactive decisions, allow the natural psychological dynamics to unfold, and create a scenario in which people willingly align with your perspective. Influence is a long game, but the quiet, composed strategist always wins because they operate with awareness rather than impulse. Understanding influence as a psychological tool transforms every interaction. You no longer need to dominate, insist, or argue aggressively. Instead, you guide through awareness, emotional regulation, presence, tone, body language, strategic silence, and subtle alignment with human needs. Influence becomes not about overpowering others, but about orchestrating interactions so that people naturally gravitate toward the decisions you wish to encourage. By mastering these principles, you can navigate arguments, negotiations, and social dynamics with a sense of calm authority, turning potential conflict into collaboration and resistance into willingness. Influence without force is the art of shaping outcomes while preserving respect, trust, and connection. Building an unbreakable mindset begins with the understanding that confidence is not something external. It is cultivated internally. Many people look to achievements, status, or external validation to feel secure and powerful. But true mental resilience is forged in the quiet battles of thought, discipline, and self-mastery. An unbreakable mindset is not the absence of fear, doubt, or discomfort. It is the ability to navigate them with composure, to remain steady when chaos surrounds you, and to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. It is rooted in the knowledge that control over oneself is the most potent form of power, and that external circumstances are secondary to the way you manage your internal state. The first pillar of an unbreakable mindset is self-awareness. Understanding your own triggers, fears, strengths, and limitations is critical because no strategy of influence, persuasion, or confidence can succeed without it. Self-awareness allows you to recognize when emotions are rising, when tension threatens to take over, or when your mental state could be compromised. By observing these internal signals without judgment, you create the first layer of control. Awareness is not passive. It is the active monitoring of your thoughts, feelings, and bodily responses so that you can respond rather than react. This vigilance creates space for calm decision-making, strategic planning, and intelligent action in the face of adversity. Discipline is the second pillar. An unbreakable mind is disciplined in thought, speech, and action. Discipline ensures consistency in behavior, even when emotions surge, pressure mounts, or uncertainty looms. It is the repeated practice of choosing rationality over impulse, patience over reactivity, and presence over distraction. Mental discipline also extends to the control of attention, choosing deliberately where to focus your energy rather than being pulled by every stimulus, provocation, or demand. This focused discipline allows you to remain steady, to project calm confidence, and to operate strategically, even in situations that would overwhelm most people. Resilience is inseparable from discipline and awareness. Resilience is not simply enduring hardship, it is adapting intelligently to setbacks, learning from failures, and maintaining composure under stress. Those with unbreakable minds do not waste energy on frustration or regret. They assess, recalibrate, and continue with purpose. Resilience is strengthened by reframing challenges as opportunities for growth, understanding that discomfort and adversity are integral to development. By cultivating resilience, you internalize the truth that external circumstances do not dictate your state. Your response does. This principle is central to sustaining confidence, composure, and influence over the long term. Emotional regulation is another critical component. The calm warrior understands that emotions are signals, not commands. Anger, frustration, fear, and anxiety are natural, but they do not have to dictate behavior. By observing emotions without immediate reaction, you maintain the ability to choose your responses. Emotional mastery allows you to communicate effectively, negotiate wisely, and assert authority without aggression. It also reinforces psychological presence. When others react impulsively, your calm becomes the anchor in the room, drawing respect and attention. Emotional control is not suppression, it is the ability to process internally while projecting stability externally. Cognitive flexibility is equally important in building an unbreakable mindset. Life, negotiations, and human interactions are rarely linear. Rigid thinking leads to frustration, conflict, and lost opportunities. Mental flexibility allows you to adapt, pivot, and respond strategically to changing circumstances. It involves considering multiple perspectives, anticipating potential challenges, and remaining open to new information without compromising core principles. Flexibility does not mean indecision. It means cultivating the mental agility to choose the best course of action under dynamic conditions, which reinforces both confidence and influence.